troubles, another cold cigarette. I'm not the type, but I'll take. Another stroll in the shadows, one more familiar street. It seems that history is bound to repeat. That's how my destiny's drawn. Just when the story is shifting, turns out it's too good to last. Maybe I just can't escape from the past as I go chasing the dawn. Why don't you just release me and go your separate way? My heart has nothing left to give away. Another drink for my troubles, another cold cigarette. I'm not the type, but I'll take a bet that flame will keep burning on as I go chasing the dawn, as I go chasing the dawn, as I go chasing the dawn. Another stroll in the shadows, one more familiar street. It seems that history is bound to repeat. That's how my destiny's drawn. Just when the story is shifting, turns out it's too good to last. Maybe I just can't escape from the past.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Kinetic Action. I have my favorite guest back on again, Tom Luongo. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the world, and we're going to be talking about the absolute mess that seems to be going on that might not be as much of a mess as you think. But first, Tom, let's let everyone know where they can find you.
Well, morning, Halsey. How are you? How you been? You look good.
Same shit, different toilet.
I know. You look pretty good, actually. To be honest with you, given everything that I know is going on. Where can everybody find me? As always, you can follow me at TFL1728 on Twitter, doing battle with retards every day, as well as Patreon/Gold Ghosts and Guns, which is where we make our bones. So
funny. Okay, let's get right into it. So right now we have Iran and the U.S. being represented by J.D. Vance, negotiating this memorandum of understanding in Switzerland, but supposedly the teams have just broken up. They've agreed to talk further. Scott Bessent says that we've now suspended sanctions on Iran for the next 60 days, and they can now sell oil to everyone, including us. And J.D. Vance claims, although Iran denies, that they've struck a deal that any money that's released from Iran's frozen funds has to be spent on U.S. farm products, which I don't believe for a second they would agree to. But what do you think? I've got mixed feelings on this. So what do you think?
I think it's the framework for the right deal. I think this is ultimately, like at the end of the day, we both know that the situation is far more complicated than anybody who's got an agenda wants you to believe that it is. Iran won, the U.S. won. Look, the goal has always been, as you and I have been talking about for nearly a decade now, the grand bargain in the Middle East, the way to get the United States out, the way to foster peace, the way to deal with the whole problem. Now, over the course of the decade that you and I have been talking about this, our perspective has deepened, has evolved, yada, yada, yada. But the general 40,000 foot framework has always been that, right? And now, as we get into this, it's pretty obvious that what was always going on was that we were dealing with people who were not agreement capable on both sides, because both of them were advancing a chaos agenda for other powers, which I would call Davos / City of London, blah, 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 blah. You call it what you want. I don't really care. And everybody who tries to simplify the situation, either Israel's evil or Iran is the good guy or Iran's the bad guy and Israel's the good, it's all not about that. Everybody's trying to body swerve around what's really going on, which is how do you get these two countries and their reasonable civilian leadership into a place where they can, for the most part, agree to act like good and constructive members of the global society without, and at the same time, get the European colonialists out of the picture. It's a very, very difficult process. And I think that we all have views on this that are, we all have our preferred outcomes is how we get there, if we can even frame it in that perspective. And you and I are two of the very few people in this space that are actually willing to even consider what I just laid out in the first place. So now let's talk about what also happened this morning, which is that Donald Trump basically walked up to Keir Starmer and said, "You're done. You're out."
Right. I don't know if that happened this morning. I think it happened over the weekend, but yeah.
Well, it happened over the weekend, but Starmer finally walked away. Now,
right.
Okay. The guy, Andy Burnham's going to come in. He's probably going to be worse than Starmer until we can actually get to a general election, because in the UK, it's always meet the new boss, same as the old boss. We've gone through now 7 prime ministers in the last decade, and it's always the same. It's always along the same path, which is how can Brussels, Davos, whatever you want to call them, destroy Brexit, bring the UK into the fold, liquidate the English Commonwealth people, the Canadians, the Irish, the Scots, the Welsh, the Australians, and the English, not the British, and all of that is a subtext, a major subtext to this entire conflict between Iran, Israel, and where Trump has placed himself in order to create a deal. Now, this sounds like I'm gish galloping all over the place, obviously, because I should be able to answer a simple question, but it's not a simple situation. So once you have that framework and background, then the question is, how do we judge what we're beginning to see evolve or come out in the last 72 hours? So they go to Switzerland on Friday, or they signed a memorandum of understanding Trump does in Versailles last Wednesday. U.S. markets are closed for Black Friday, and the Iranians immediately go out there and say, "Oh no, we didn't agree to anything," and it's this typical bullshit as we go through the weekend. But then we also know that by Monday, they're at the table.
Right.
So again, the question is, when you're dealing with Iran, which side of the Iranian leadership is actually in control of the situation? And what I see this morning coming out of Bessent, coming out of Vance as Trump's mouthpiece, and I know you and I have very different views on J.D. Vance, but I take Scott Bessent at face value, which is that I don't disagree with you about Vance. I just see Vance as Trump's subordinate. I don't see him as anything else, playing good cop to Trump's bad cop. And Bessent opening that up is saying, yeah, we can figure out ways to funnel the money to the responsible parties in Iran and make sure that money doesn't go to the IRGC, because we've locked down all their other ways of utilizing the money like they have in the past, because we've knocked out their funding sources from Hezbollah, all of this other stuff, as well as we've knocked out their ability to use the banking network globally that they've used in the past. And so That's what Besson is effectively telling you this morning. He's effectively saying we can ensure that this money gets to the right people. I absolutely believe the whole thing about, and you have to buy your shit from the United States. I think that's Trump 101. Like, that's
Yeah, but
what
I don't
Trump
see them
always
agreeing to it. It's not. I didn't say that it wasn't
Yeah,
Trump 101. I said I don't see them
right.
agreeing to it.
Okay. But which Iran, right? And that's I guess that's the big question. So I'm willing to throw it back to you. That's what I see so far, and let's talk about the next phase of it.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where to start,
Sure.
because what I see is you're judging what you think the conclusion will be based on the evidence of what you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying right now, I don't actually know what the
Mm-hmm.
conclusion will be. I know the steps that are leading up to it.
Okay.
So I think that we can base a lot of different conclusions. I can say some right, some negative, right? Like, I don't think that there are necessarily two Irans, or that the money would get to the right place. But again, I go back to something I've been talking about for years now. In 2016, Trump's crown jewel of his policy that nobody knows about is when he founded the Counterterrorism Financing Center in Saudi Arabia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means, and afterwards they designated that anyone designated like a terrorist organization, we already know the U.S. government can seize their money, which is the big
Right.
deal, because a terrorism center, like a terrorism group, can try to buy bombs, can be suicide, whatever. They can do all of that, but if you take their money, that's what screws them over. That's why he designated the cartels terrorist groups. It wasn't because he
Right.
planned on going to war with them. He just wants to take their
Right.
money.
Right.
Okay, I really do think that the reason we're talking about releasing all this money from them, the frozen money, as of now, since 1979, that frozen money is sat in a bank account. They've
Mm-hmm.
been under sanctions, and they've been selling oil both illicitly and not so illicitly to China, to India, to all of them. And the money goes into shadow accounts in China, in India, and all of those places.
Mm-hmm.
By connecting the Iranian oil money, both the frozen money and the money they're going to make from the oil with the sanctions released, they're doing it through the SWIFT system, which means we
Mm-hmm.
can track it, right? And
Right.
I think that a decision was made. Like, again, this is just my conclusion based on what I'm seeing, that the money is better given to them so we can track where it's going and figure out exactly how much because they're going to start moving money out of China, they're going to start moving money out of India, and they're going to start. I mean, the MOU straight up says they're able to send it wherever they want. The U.S. is not allowed to protest,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the U.S. wants them to send it all over the place, because
Mm-hmm.
now, instead of sitting in an account with people arguing about should we just impound it or not and keep it, which always seems to not happen, right? Because
Right.
it's always wanted to be kept in an account for like a carrot stick approach later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can keep it, track it, seize it, keep it. Right? Now it's
Right.
not Iranian frozen funds. Now it's our money. And if they
Mm-hmm.
want it, they could sue us for it back, which won't work.
Mm-hmm.
I also look at the Iran war. I don't want to use the term the grand bargain, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
my opinion is that I don't think it's a grand bargain at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more of a premeditated conclusion. And I don't think it's necessarily positive or negative, except for I think that Trump has made the decision, and this is really my view, that he wants out of the Middle East. We've been saying this for a very long time.
Yes.
There's no way he can do it without causing the same kind of chaos that happened in Afghanistan, right? Like, he can't just say, I'm packing up and going home.
Right.
Okay? Because if you do that, you basically leave Iran in control of the entire Persian Gulf.
Right.
And you leave Saudi Arabia and all our other major oil sources that, remember, we don't care about importing their oil. We care about everybody else doing it. We don't want to raise the price of oil for ourselves and kill us in our own market. We're the largest oil exporter in the world at this point, right? We don't need their oil. It's just we don't have enough to sell to the entire planet at the same time. And
Right.
we also, regardless of what anyone says, we don't want to be seen as selling Venezuela's oil off to either, right? Like, we'll do it in an emergency situation, but we're not doing that. We're not selling it off like that. So I've been racking my brain on this, because like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I have to put together the puzzle. I have to start at the beginning and look at what's happened to judge what I think could possibly be happening. right? So I went back. I'm not going to get my dates right because I don't have the timeline pulled up in front of me. But first, we had the first 12-day war between Israel and Iran. Okay.
Yep.
Now, my opinion is, why did that have to happen? Because one of the biggest benefits of the aid that Israel gets from the U.S. is that they battle test their weapons in real time against the best Russian systems that exist. Right? Now, Iran doesn't get all their weapons from Russia. They get them mostly from China. And we've never battle tested against Chinese weapons because we've never fought a country that had strictly Chinese weapons. And even though I don't think China is top notch in terms of weapons production, we know from 1995 onwards, they've stolen almost all of our designs for our weapons. They have the plans for the F-35. Look at their stealth fighter. It looks identical, right? It's just not as good. Like, we know that they can target us probably a ton better than Russian systems can. And we've never tested them. The F-35 is literally a flying data center. It collects every piece of data that it possibly could on electronic warfare, on bombing accuracy, on countermeasures, on everything, and transmits it real time to our bases. Okay, so I think the 12-day war was the first test. They wanted to see how did Israeli F-35s and F-15Is and our interceptors work against Chinese equipment and Iranian equipment, because they're basically the same thing, right? And it performed amazing. And then when we had all the data we needed, Trump dropped the bombs on the three cities with the B-2s, our most incredible, amazing B-2s that ever flew from the United States. And then immediately said, we're done. No more war, ceasefire. That's all there is to it. Right? Which, again, didn't make any sense. Then out of nowhere, America starts building up this massive naval presence in the Persian Gulf. Massive, right? Like the biggest naval protest that you've ever seen. I keep saying protest. Presence.
Build up. Presence.
Right, yeah. And number one, our Navy, all of these carrier strike groups, are literally the biggest mobile data centers that you can imagine, right? So anything any data that's going to be gained from our F-35s, our F-15s, our interceptor missiles, everything, all of that is fed into the data centers that are on our aircraft carriers and on our spy boats, right? So I knew, like, this was one of those things I was afraid of the Mandela effect. I remembered that right before things got really crazy, like right when they were like about to attack, the State Department had issued a release that all U.S. bases had been evacuated of essential personnel in the Middle East, except for three, right? The United Arab Emirates, Erbil in northern Iraq, and in Israel. They don't have a base in Israel, but they have a presence there, right? All the other ones they evacuated, okay? And they evacuated them to the UAE, Israel, and that's pretty much all I know of. Because they said, during the war, they said there are tons of soldiers in both those places. So why would he do that? It doesn't make any sense. First of all, who on a military base, other than maybe a secretary or two, are non-essential personnel? Everybody on a military base is essential, right? And again, I'm not trying to criticize the U.S. I'm just saying what I see. I don't think, because then we went to war the second time, but now it's with the U.S. It's Israel and the U.S. The U.S. is sending in all of its forces. I don't think that test went as well as they hoped. Okay, because we know 34 planes were damaged of the U.S. that some of them were friendly fire, but 34 planes were damaged. About 100 drones were taken down, and this was the big one. They hit all of our bases, right? Now, the CENTCOM tried to cover that up for a while. They tried to say it wasn't the case. The New York Times blew that right out of the water. They just took civilian satellite pictures and saw that they actually hit our bases. All of the ones that were evacuated, right? Which leads me to believe it was done on purpose. Now those bases are gone. Now it's like the United States is not going to spend the money to rebuild them. They're just going to keep them evacuated, right? And the proof to me of that I'm right about that is, where are the dead bodies? If these were actually bases, U.S. military bases that had even just essential personnel there, and they were literally hit by hundreds of missiles from Iran, where are the dead bodies? No one even got hurt on any of our bases. Why? They were all in hotels in Israel and in the UAE, which are fully protected by not only Iron Dome, but Arrow missile defense systems and the full range of American interceptors, which none of the other countries are, by the way. Bahrain isn't, Oman isn't, Saudi Arabia isn't, Qatar isn't. That's why they've been terrified every day of Iran, because, they can still be hit. The UAE hasn't really been able to be hit. Like, they took some fire and they did get hit a couple times. So did Israel. You can't stop everything. Right. But by and large, the UAE and Israel were completely protected. Right? Then I go a step further. Out of nowhere again, Trump just says, we're done, which makes no sense because we didn't do anything. Okay? Like, yeah, we sunk their Navy, but it doesn't matter. They weren't using their Navy for anything. Their Navy was worthless. Like, did we take out their Air Force? I'm not sure. I still see videos of planes flying over Tehran when they activate their missile defense, their air defense systems. So they're not gone. They're just worthless. Right? Like, against a real adversary, they're worthless.
Yes. F4s are not interesting in this conversation.
So I really believe that the reason Trump went into ceasefire number 2 is whatever data they gained from that war was not as positive as it could have been. Right? And then you see everything that happened after that became really interesting. And this kind of blew my mind. Right? We went back in. Remember I always joke, how whenever Israel does anything, everyone goes, Israel has a right to defend itself, even though it's not like a self-defense move. Like they get a rocket rained on and they attack a stronghold. That's not a self-defense move. That's an offensive move, even though it's framed in a way of self-defense. So America started doing that with Iran. Like an Apache got hit, but nobody died, and the pilots are fine. But America has a right to defend itself. So we started attacking radar stations, which doesn't make any sense again. You're not punishing them by attacking radar systems. What you're doing is protecting your own fleet from whatever it is that makes Chinese systems work, right? So I've looked, I obviously, I'm a nerd like this. I follow all the defense journals and all of that. And what they were hitting was what makes Chinese systems work. Like they basically confirmed it over and over and over again. Then finally, there was this thing where Bibi hit Beirut. Iran fired a bunch of missiles and missed with all of them. And when they missed this time, these were not American interceptors. These were fully Israeli interceptors. They were all intercepted right above Israel, not on the way over. Right. American interceptors didn't go off at all, in fact, because they hit Jordan. They hit a couple other. They were all errant, but at the same time, they didn't intercept them all. So again, another test. Can Israel deal with it if America is not involved? Right? And apparently they can. Because then also when Israel responded, by far, I love talking about this because I think it's so fucking cool. Right? Okay. Israel has a missile called the Black Sparrow. Right? They developed this. This is like the most Israeli thing you'll ever hear. And I love it. When America was developing its missile defense shield, right? They contracted Israeli companies to make a air-launched ballistic missile that could be used as the dummy missile for our missile defense systems to handle, right? Because we're not going to start firing ballistic missiles from thousands of miles away to imitate real missiles, because where are we going to fire them from? They cost a fortune, all of that. So Israel developed one that could be launched from a plane. And then somewhere out of nowhere, they said, well, wait a minute, why should we just make this a dummy? This is a really cool thing. Without seeing on the ground where it was launched from, you can't predict a ballistic path. Right? So you
can't intercept it.
Right. So when you can't see it coming. So you can't evacuate where you're going to hit. So when Israel struck back against this latest missile barrage, they used only that. They announced it. And they were over Syria and Jordan when they did. They didn't have to even penetrate Iranian airspace. Okay? I think, and this might be a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is like, oh, don't worry, trust the plan. Everything's going to work out. I think what you're seeing right now is that Trump and Bibi may have agreed, whatever it is, that whatever this intertwining between America and Israel has to be broken to some extent. Yes. Okay? And you know what the funny part is? The easiest way to research this stuff is look at what the lunatic Spurgs are saying, because while they're going to take it so out of context that it becomes ridiculous, it's good to look at what their source is. Where are they coming from that they're going crazy? So I remember I always said this. I said if Israel tried to tell America they don't want the aid, America would say no. There's too much value to the military industrial complex for such a small amount of money. Right? And that's what happened the first time Bibi suggested it. Trump said no. He said the reason was it wouldn't help any PR wise. Right? But he said no. Then all of a sudden, the second time, he was open to it over 10 years. And then all of a sudden, this thing that everyone's freaking out about, the NDAA, comes out.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
now everyone says this is an intertwining of the U.S. and we're surrendering. It's not. All it does is create an office to figure out where our military and their military can work together, developing new projects. And if we do develop them together, how to integrate them into both militaries.
What it's doing, in effect, because I think you and I talked about this the other day, which is that it's doing is formalizing the relationship we currently have, but get rid of the formal aid
right
up front. So we're not paying them the $3.8 billion a year
right
to have the ability to tell them you're going to do this. We're just going to agree to do what we're already doing anyway, and we're not going to transfer any money.
Right. Or no, they might transfer money. If Israel comes to the U.S., to this office and says, we have a design for a laser weapon, and America goes, that's fucking awesome, we want to work with you on that, they'll establish a budget and work out how to develop it together.
But that's not foreign aid. But that's not
no, not at all
foreign aid. Right. And when this is, I'm trying to make sure that we define terms here for people who are going to spurg out about this, especially what you just laid out, right? Which is that this is about breaking the formal ties without breaking the formal ties and putting them on a different budgetary path, on a different political path, and a different and this is now not something that has to go through Congress and the Office of Foreign Aid. It doesn't have to go that way.
If it does have to go to Congress, it does so in the defense budget, not the foreign aid budget. So
which is fundamentally different, which also then which actually disempowers all of the Juicebergs that are constantly complaining that Israel controls the United States.
Exactly. And it puts it on the same level of things like Ramstein Air Base and things like that. Those are not done through foreign aid. They're not considered foreign aid. They're done through the defense budget, which, by the way, was also a side note, kind of a big deal. As all these bases were struck in the Middle East, Trump announced that he's starting to draw down from Ramstein and from all the European bases as well.
At the same time.
Which I think is a huge, it's a tell. All of these things are just tells. Yes. I can't tell you looking at it that, this is definitely what is going to happen because of it. Right? Like, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning because we keep going back and forth between the way Trump's acting on this MOU is retarded or if it's strategic. Right? I think there's a bit of both. I really do. Like, I think that Trump wants a deal and is willing to go pretty damn far to get it. Probably a lot farther than I would want to go. But at the same time, I think in Trump's mind, right, and this we've proven now through 2 separate military engagements and hundreds of other processes, that if it comes down to it and Trump signs a deal with Iran and Israel doesn't like it and considers it a threat, Israel could take care of the job itself. And Trump will step back and say, you could do it yourself. We're not getting involved.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think Israel would be fine with that. I think that Israel that's kind of one of the tests for Israel. Like, if you want to be a big boy country, you have to make decisions based on big boy consequences, right? Like, if you're going to attack Iran, understand they're going to attack you back. Your systems are fantastic. You can intercept their missiles. We get it. But it's not going to be a case where we're going to get involved. Unless obviously, like, it becomes completely dire, like,
But what's important to understand here is that if you follow Halsey's logic on this, right? Speaking to the audience, and when you follow the logic through, this is the only framework that makes any sense to actually get to where we want to go, right? And then, of course, Iran, the IRGC, whatever you want to call them, doesn't really want that because then they don't have any skin in the global chess game anymore from their perspective. Think about it like a bunch of Persian chess players. They're like, well, if we can't keep the United States in here, we lose all of our reason for having China on our side and having Russia on our side and being able to use that as a means by which to get the things that we want to in order to achieve our agenda.
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's so very important when you step back from all of the minutia. Relatively speaking, what you just went through is actual minutia, but these are important details that set the foundation for why Trump is able to go to China, go to Russia, and say, why are we even playing that old game anymore? Why can't we play a different game?
Right.
And so when you see Trump go to Beijing and be treated like a king, when you see him host Putin in Alaska and treat him very, very well, you're seeing the statecraft version at that level of what this minutia, these details that you're laying out here are self-consistent with. And then when you take that and measure it against the response from all the usual suspects, from Brussels, the UK, the Ted Cruzes and everybody, and the dispensationalists and the Zionists in the United States and everywhere else, you see they're all crashing out. The Atlantic Council's crashing out. The CFR is crashing out. They're all freaking out because now all of a sudden their grift has been undermined. And they can't play the same old narrative shaping games that they had before. And it's also, that's when Trump can turn around and go, drop the folder on Keir Starmer's desk and go, I know I got you dead to rights in the Pakistani rape games. You're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And if this guy Burnham is just as bad, I'll get rid of him too.
Right.
And then you can empower, clearly controlled opposition, Nigel Farage, to call for general elections. But the goal there is, in the UK, clearly the goal there is to get past Farage to what's the actual reformists.
Mm-hmm.
Because Trump is not only just trying to save Israel and Iran and all these satellite countries from the old British Empire, but it's also actually taking out the British Empire and trying to liberate those people as well. But this now gets into a much, much bigger conversation. But as I said from the beginning of the war, and I still believe this, Iran is a part of the network. It's a network node on the path to this bigger flipping of the game board or changing of the game board and ending the old great game and starting a different one.
So I have a bunch of points to what you just said.
Sure.
That I think are important. Okay. Number one, and obviously I'll admit my own fallacy. When I first read the MOU, I completely crashed out. Now I did it in private. I didn't want to embarrass myself when I came to my senses the next day, but I hadn't slept in a while. I was really upset. I had a real emotional reaction to it. Tom knows it. A few other people did.
We have a huge text thread going back and forth between the two of us, and I kind of looked at him and went, I'm not really seeing it that way, dude. Are you okay? And he's like, I haven't slept. I think we just sleep on it, come back, let's talk about it. And then literally the next day, he called me and we were, just so you guys know, he called me, we were chatting. I was actually at a speaking engagement over the weekend where I almost died. Like 10 minutes after we had that done with that phone call, I nearly got swept up in a friggin' microburst tornado in New Hampshire. It was hilarious and weird and a little scary, but in the end of the day, we're all fine here. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you? We're sending a squad up, but but we left that conversation literally as I rang off with he was laying a lot of this to me, and I'm like, cool, he's got his bearings back again. Because what's funny is that when, a lot of this stuff I'm not a geek about. I'm not a geek about military hardware like you are, or Dexter White or other people. But one of the things I do have around me is a whole cadre of people who have very different perspectives, who look at this whole conflict from different perspectives. So you're looking at it from one perspective. Dexter's looking at it from another perspective. Blaine Holt's looking at it from somewhere else. Ian Burlingame. And the interesting part about it is that since the beginning of this conflict, when Trump announced Operation Epic Fury on February 28th, not once have I had every one of my interlocutors crash out at the same time. What I had was different people, like one person would crash out, another person wouldn't. Okay. And one person would crash out of something else and everybody else would. And it was like kind of a rotate. And I use that and for me, I use that as a means by which to not react and to say, I'm going to trust that Trump is is on top of this in a way that, because everybody's looking at it from their different perspectives, I'm trying to be like almost like the narrative coordinator, right, of all of this. And
the red
so,
pillar.
right, well, and in fact, just the guy sitting there going, yeah, I'm not quite seeing that. I see all these other things that are happening, and but you're right to worry about that threat. You're right to worry about that threat. But let's see how this plays out. And honestly, in many points, my blood pressure never actually got very high, though the stress was quite big, having to navigate all these big personalities and these big people, right? So just so you guys know, that was what was going on for me behind the scenes. So
But then I looked at it more, and I try not, to the best of my ability, to sound like a conspiracy theorist, right? Sure. I don't want to just make judgments that seem like they're trying to fit my narrative, right? So I said Occam's razor. Now, most people would look at the MOU and say Occam's razor is what it is on its face, and Trump is either a genius or a retard, but this is what we're doing. And then I said, that's not Occam's razor. Occam's razor is the MOU doesn't make any sense. And if it doesn't make any sense, then it probably shouldn't make any sense. Like, there's something more to it if it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I went point by point through it. And I was like, okay, the first point says that, A, Trump will shut up, which is ridiculous. It says he's not allowed to issue any threats or negativity towards Iran, which just the fact that that's there should show you how ridiculous this MOU is, right? Secondly, it says there has to be like basically a complete respect of Lebanese sovereignty and a ceasefire in Lebanon to continue. Now, a lot of my friends, the pro-Israeli friends, will say, oh, this is just U.S. is going to tell Israel to knock it off, and Hezbollah is going to win out on the day. But neither of these parties are party to this MOU or to a final deal.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do I think? Now, I don't know if this is a good idea. I want to stress this, that if there's going to be pressure put on Israel to stop in Lebanon, Trump said it openly over and over and over again. He just wants them to be more discreet about it, right? Like, he's not even asking them. Like, he said that over and over again when he was at the G7. He kept saying, like, I don't care if you kill people. Just, like, be cool about it. Like don't, like, have us on the front page.
Be proportional about it. Or whatever you have to do, right?
And at the same time, for every bit of, let's say, quote-unquote ceasefire he gets, we're in a position where, again, Iran is going to start transferring money to Hezbollah, a designated terrorist group by the United States. Now, and they have to do it through the SWIFT system, because all that money is entering through the SWIFT system, right? So it's going to be that we can track it, we can take it, and we can point Israel towards where it's going. Like, what are they transferring it to? What are they spending it on? We can use that to track illicit arms sales all over the place to try to figure out where are all the bad guys now, because we've dispersed them throughout the world. Okay?
And before you go any further, and just to stop the crypto bros in the audience going, well, they'll take the money, they'll put it into Bitcoin, they'll move it into Monero, and then it'll disappear. And like at that point, Scott Bessent shuts the whole freaking operation down. They'll get to do that once.
Yeah.
Once. It's a fire and forget. It's like their launchers during the war. It was a fire and forget weapon. You can do it one time, and then you're done. Then you've broken the deal. Right? I want to make sure everybody understands. When we say something like this, we're also saying they're on top of the secondary and tertiary moves.
Right.
Right. Okay.
I don't even consider the crypto to be like a real option. Like, crypto is an option of last resort for them, and it's just as traceable as anything else. Right? Because sooner or later that crypto has to be turned into cash, and they can follow it generally anywhere. And when they do, then all of a sudden then it's cash, and again they seize it. Right? And remember, yes, they turn it into Bitcoin, then turn it into Monero. That's a nice step. But if we seize it and close the wallet down the minute it turns into Bitcoin, there is no turning it into Monero. Right? You can't just do an instant transfer of billions of dollars on Bitcoin and just go like, oh, look, we turned billions of dollars into Bitcoin. Again, the SWIFT system would know it because the dollars will have left the accounts. Right. You know? So not just
that, the Bitcoin, and then the wallet goes, again, it's like everything else. Again, I'm just...
So you keep
but
going...
we have to make sure that you cover these things when you're talking, because otherwise some people will just like look at you like you got four heads. I'm like, no, they're on top of that, right? Again, at best, fire and forget weapons. Go ahead.
Right. But then as I kept going down the list of the MOU, I keep going, okay, basically what this says is that we're going to connect the IRGC in earnest back to the SWIFT system, right? Which again, I don't care what anyone says. To me, that's a grand goal in and of itself, because it's like the first hit is free. Once you're in the SWIFT system, you're not getting out of the SWIFT system. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was also part of why he went to what he talked about in China. I think he said in China, we're going to do this the way that we're going to do this. China doesn't care about Iran. They just care that they get the oil from Iran, right? And he just told I think he just told them. He said, listen, we're going to put them back on the SWIFT system with any kind of deal, and their dirty money is going to come out into the open, and you'll be fine with it because China wants to use the SWIFT system too. You know, they don't want their currency being screwed with through illegal shadow banks and all of that. They have no interest in that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to stop you right there because now this reframes for me Obama kicking them out of the SWIFT system in December of 2011.
Right.
It was done as a preparatory move in order to move all of their money out of away from prying eyes.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Which is why he gave them cash. Because then they could just put it in a truck and send it wherever they wanted.
Right. And again,
and even if we saw them loading a truck with cash and sending it to China, if we seized it, everyone would know we seized it, and it would go back into the frozen funds fund, and it would just be right back to the same beginning, right? So all of this is going on, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, what Trump's trying to do is he wants out of the Middle East. He just wants out of this giant mess. Okay, I truly believe that. Mm-hmm. I believe that Trump wants to get something out of it, but if he doesn't really care, right? Because again, even if this goes to full deal, right, like whatever, I don't think he cares about the nuclear material that's actually in Iran, because I think that we buried a lot of it, and the stuff that they do have left, which is still just as bad, we have no clue where it is, right? And they're going to deny having it in the first place. Right? They'll admit to what they already had, but they're going to deny it anyway. Mm-hmm. So the option is still going to be there that it's going to have to be taken in a shadow way, that instead of open war, it'll be done covertly. Right? Also, again, once you connect Iran to the SWIFT system, they now have trouble buying things like centrifuges and all of that. Right? Their reactors, I mean, you're a chemical guy, you know this. They have 2,200 kilograms of reactor grade plutonium. So separating that into weapons grade plutonium is a chemical process. It's not a mechanical one. So like that's right there. We don't have to question anymore. Do they have it? They have it. The question is, we're not going to let them make a bomb out of it, I think. I think all this IAEA stuff and then we're going to go get the nuclear dust and all this nonsense, I don't think anyone actually cares about that stuff. They care about their ability to make a bomb. And they also want to get that money out into the public, because right now, if given the option, the whole MOU goes through, Trump's now bound to this peace deal. He's going to go look for the nuclear dust. Iran is sanction free and making billions and billions of dollars. They're not going to try to buy uranium and make a bomb. They're going to try to buy a bomb. Right? They're just going to try to buy it from Pakistan or from North Korea. Okay, so we need to know when they're transferring $1 billion to Pakistan or $1 billion to North Korea. And I think, again, that's why Trump keeps saying, like, yeah, we're going to get the Iranian dust, but who really cares? You know,
unless it's got the fingerprints on it. I do believe that there's a certain amount of desire on his part, if he knows that it was Obama and Hillary that effectively gave it to them, and the centrifuges and then he wants that as part of his getting Obama, and that's also a very important. But again, that could also just be him chumming the waters to continue to close the noose around Obama's neck in terms of public relations, because all of this is happening while Obama is now desperately trying to, gild his lily, as it were. And,
yeah, but the thing about I've thought this was a red herring for a while, and I still kind of believe it, that Trump has 2 years left, right? They're not doing anything to Obama. Let's be serious. They're not going to be clapping Obama and Hillary in chains and sending them to Gitmo and all of that stuff. They might destroy them, like try to do it PR wise in letting everyone know what pieces of shit they are. But Obama can circle the wagons all he wants. The truth of the matter is that right now, when you look at the midterms and the 2028 election, first of all, I think Trump has already surrendered the midterms. Okay, because nobody votes in the midterms. Okay, that's proven over and over and over again. And polls are meaningless because everyone, when they get polled, will say, I'm going to vote in the midterms, and still nobody turns up. It's considered a pain in the ass, and most people don't even know who their congressmen are at this point. Right? What I do think is that this deal, this whole thing, doesn't help him in the midterms. I know people love to say lower gas prices help him in the midterms. They don't. Because the people that do show up are the old people and the diehards, which are Democrats. The old people are 50-50, right? Cheaper gas prices is not going to get more people to go to the polls during the midterms. Right. And all this nonsense with Iran is actually going to hurt him because the Republican base are not thrilled about it, right? So I don't think this helps him in the midterms. Even if he gets a deal, I don't think it helps him. Okay? So I think he's either surrendered them or he's just basically saying what happens, happens. Right? Because I know everyone loves to say, well, let me just finish real quick. I know everyone loves to say that, you know, Trump is terrified because they're going to spend the next 2 years impeaching him and it's just going to be a train wreck and whatever. He looks much better fighting the Democrats and getting impeached every 15 minutes than he does watching the Republicans do nothing. When the Republicans do nothing, he looks weak. When the Democrats come after him, he looks strong because why are they so afraid of him that they need to come after him? So I don't think on a cost-benefit analysis, he particularly cares about the midterms. I don't think he believes he can influence them, right? I think he's trying to do real politics. Like, does he want gas prices to come down for the summer just so people aren't pissed about gas prices for the summer? And instead of continuing to drain our SPR, which is at like nothing anyway, if the prices are low, he can now buy all the futures to refill the SPR right now and then not have to worry about it while keeping gas low for the summer. I think he wants to do that regardless of the midterms. I think he wants to do that so people don't just freak the fuck out all over the place. You know?
Well, I mean, well, what I'll say is this: between the redistricting wins, the potential for the SAVE Act, I think there's more going on domestically than that, and I think that he's in a much better position in the midterms than a lot of people give him credit for or believe. Because again, the midterm map, minimum, the Democrats have to have a lot of work to do. In order to get
I'm not saying he's gonna lose the midterms. Right. Maybe I might have misspoken. Okay. What I'm saying is he's going to let the dominoes fall where they may on the midterms because there isn't so much he can do to influence them. That's what I think.
Fair. And I look at it going, what I'll say is his perceived apathy that we've seen, because everybody's picking up on this, that he doesn't seem to really care about them, tells me I've been looking at it going, man, he probably just, well, it's a mixture of what you just laid out and the fact that I think he knows that the numbers are probably on his side anyway, and the Democrats are the ones that have an uphill battle to climb here, because honestly, in many ways, he is doing a lot of the things that the normal people in this country elected him to do. And he understands that, and they all understand that, and, you know, and again, go through the primaries. The guy was, 104-0 or some retarded shit like that. At the end of the day, like, you know, his vote to, you know, who he puts his name behind gets the win. And, you know, he's proven, and and again, like, did he put his weight behind Lindsey Graham? Yeah, of course he did. Why? Because Lindsey Graham was willing to work with him and help him get some things done. And Lindsey Graham showed the willingness to work. Whereas guys like Thomas Massie didn't. They went into full opposition mode and they got crushed. And that's a completely different conversation, but it's not really. What it does is it just destroys all of this narrative that's playing out on Twitter and in the podcast space and everything else. And all these people just don't matter. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm up here in rural Tennessee and I got news for you, folks. Like, these people are all going to vote, you know, red in the midterms. Like, they're not going to go vote for people who
100%.
You know, it's not going to change anything. Like, it's not. There are a lot of districts that we think are red that maybe we think are red at this point that may be more purple than we thought. Okay, so you got to put some money towards those things. You got to, put your name behind that. Remember also that he's talking about a convention, not a rally in September. So it's almost like they're looking ahead on the game board going, okay, are we getting to a point where we're going to have to invalidate a number of sitting Congress people, that there's not even going to be a valid legislature come September because of the other shit that's coming down the pike that they know about, or that they're telling you there's something weird coming between now and November. Mm-hmm. And with everything we've just laid out, if we're correct about any of this, it then would fit that Trump's enemies at London, at Davos, and are going to pull every freaking plan off the shelf and throw it at us.
For sure.
That's what they're going to do. And so, and we've already seen bits and pieces of this. So, continue to. I refuse to get histrionic about these things.
Oh no, me either. But what I am saying
I said that I wasn't accusing you of doing that.
Right.
Just to be abundantly clear, what I'm saying is this is in general. Like, I'm looking down the pike, going, yeah, like, I'm with Trump on this one. Like, or with your interpretation of it. Like, there's not much we can do about it at this point, and because you've got a Senate in full revolt, you've got a House that is at best compromised. As long as the big bits and pieces get done, which it looks like they're going to get done. Clarity, the Genius Act is already done. All these other things are already done. Funding for ICE, funding for this stuff. And now they're starting to make major moves on things like H-1Bs and immigration and blah, blah, blah. And all that stuff's coming. And, and then I go look at the financial markets and I'm like, I'm seeing across the board confirmations in Dow theory that tell me that that the dam is about to burst in the labor market and a variety of other areas of the country, and it's going to really start to kick off. I don't know if it's going to get there in terms of time for the midterms, but all that matters now is the perception that we're getting this shit done. It's a big problem. Everybody's against us, but we're going to get it done anyway. And God forbid, we beat England on July 4th in the World Cup. Forget it. Like, it's, That'll win Trump more congressional seats than anything else at this point.
I go a step further, though. If you look historically, Trump has always been very strong in candidates he endorses in primaries, but he's been rather weak in terms of those candidates that he endorses that when they come to a general election. Okay, so I do think that his 104 win ratio is decent for some places because they're going to elect a Republican no matter what. But this is probably something that we're going to disagree on. Okay, and I truly believe this. I believe that right now what he's doing, regardless of the outcome, right, is going to make J.D. Vance unelectable. I truly believe that. And that's why he's keeping Rubio quiet. That's why he's keeping Hegseth quiet. There's now that quote that he said to someone who wrote a book that they asked him if he was going to tear down all the gold stuff in the White House, and he said no because the next guy, Cubans love gold, right? So as we keep talking about, we have a very deep bench going into 2028. Okay, and the last thing we need is Republicans tearing each other apart when we have such a deep bench. And I think the end result of all of this, and I think this was going to happen before this whole MOU thing.
Right.
J.D. Vance has completely said outright he has no idea if he's running. He's always been hedging about it. He said he's been saying, I don't know if I'm going to run. Now politicians do that all the time. I think he's serious. Right. I think he's not going. He's young enough and he's prominent enough that he's not going to run if he thinks he's going to lose. And I think that there's too much evidence that he's going to lose, especially when we have such a deep bench. Because losing in a primary as vice president would be terrible. That would make you seem like completely feckless.
Yeah, and he would be done. And his political career would be over.
Right.
And he would be a footnote. And he's again, to your point, too young, too big a potential career in front of him.
Too many connections to shady people too. People are going to bring up that he's fired a whole bunch of people from the vice president's office that were supposed leakers. There was all this stuff. Like, there's just too much against him. The fact that he's so connected to Don Jr. and Omid Malik and Tucker Carlson and all of these people who Trump hates. You know what I'm saying? Like, up until this moment, he's done nothing but trash these people. And these people are Vance is our guy, right? So I don't...
It's very clear. It's very clear that there's an operation to split Rubio and Vance and to try and create. I've been reading that for months. Is just this is the Bannonites and the Duganistas, trying to create division within the administration, as they measured the drapes for 2028, as Esther White would put it. That if you can split them apart and then force them into conflict with each other, that we would have this problem. I think this is another classic example of what British media is very good, British style media, and we have British style media in the United States. Its hallmark is creating controversy where there is none, and then propagating it through repetition, right? And propagating it through narrative shaping. So Keir Starmer, they've been trying to get rid of Keir Starmer in the British press for 3 weeks, or for 3 to 4 weeks now. They went so far as to blow out U.S. UK bond yields in order to put pressure on Starmer to get the London crowd against him. Blah blah. They did everything imaginable to get rid of him. All they were doing is, in order to put the inevitable pressure on him, they tried this. They did the same thing to Starmer in the last couple of weeks that you saw them do with Hegseth and Gabbard over Signalgate. Wow, there are rumors that are out there that Hegseth is going to resign by Friday.
No, I never bought any of that.
I never bought it either, Halsey, but this is not the way that works. You and I knew that was stupid, but again, that type of attempt. I'm trying to explain. There's a method to this that they use, in order to try and bamboozle people with bullshit, and to then create the pressure that eventually will lead to the thing. And if you're dealing with feckless people like Mitt fucking Romney, you can get any outcome you want. When you're dealing with a hard ass like Hegseth, you're going to get nowhere, right? And I think Trump is encouraging them to do all these things, the Carlsons and the Bannons and all these people to do this, because what is it doing? It's outing them as to what their actual agenda is. Again, Trump's superpower is allowing people to hang themselves with their own rope. And if they're not willing to quite come out of the woodwork to hang themselves with their own rope, he'll poke them in such a way as to force them to hang themselves with their own rope at some point in the future. The Epstein files is a perfect example of that. So because of the Epstein files, because he kept saying, let's just let it go. And then, of course, they seize on that and they go, okay, let's hammer him. He's not going to release the Epstein files. And then we can hang him with the black box, which is a typical London CIA MI6 operation, which is why I had Massey pegged from the beginning. I could tell what he was doing. I'm like, watch this. At some point, he's going to release everything. And then we found out, oh, by the way, Steve Bannon was working with Epstein the entire time to undermine Trump. And who got hurt the most? Bannon. Who had to go into friggin' into defense mode? Bannon. And then that's when you got Alex Jones crashing out and Marjorie Taylor Greene crashed, and they all did it right afterwards, right? And so, boom, it's all there staring you in the face.
So I want to expand on what you just said.
So the last thing, let me finish, and then we'll.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, I think Vance and Rubio are just playing part. They're just part of the pantomime, and we don't know what either of them are going to do at this point. That's the way I'm reading it as of right now. I'm open to other interpretations. Go ahead.
So the thing I believe about Trump and Vance, right now, Vance has said it. Trump has said it. They've all said this. So what I'm saying is not speculation. The reason that Vance is vice president is because of Don Jr. and Tucker, right? They were the ones who told Trump to take Vance. Now, if you look at the entire Trump universe, right? The entire roster from 2016 to today, everyone that was associated with both Trump and Don Jr. have completely turned against Trump. 100%.
You mean Tucker? You said Trump and Don Jr. You meant Tucker and Don Jr.
No, I meant Trump and Don Jr. because think about it. Even the Bannons. Bannon was not a Tucker guy, and he turned Mike Flynn completely turned against him. And remember, even with someone wrote in the chat, they said, so he hates Don Jr. I find it very curious that Don Jr. got married and Trump didn't go, because he said he was too busy dealing with Iran stuff and nothing happened that weekend. And Trump Jr. got married in Florida. Like, what? It would have been too much of a stretch for him to hop on a helicopter and go from Mar-a-Lago to see his son's wedding, and he didn't turn up. You haven't seen Don Jr. He hasn't been posting on Twitter up until J.D. Vance came out for this MOU. All of a sudden, Don Jr. is all over Twitter again. And he's attacking Ted Cruz. He's attacking all these different Israelis. He's attacking all these people and mobilizing the same podcast squad that he mobilized for Trump in the past. Now, one could easily say Trump's in charge of it, that he's telling him to do it. I don't buy it.
Right.
Okay, because if you know how Trump with the loyalty and all of that, everyone that he's trusted with Don Jr. has turned against him. Bingo. Right? Every single one.
That's a really good point.
And also go a step further. Remember, the whole Russia thing, the closing argument in the entire Russia investigation was that Don Jr. met with that Russian asset. Right? Remember, they took a meeting and then Trump never actually wound up meeting with her?
Yeah.
But Don Jr. did.
Yeah. It was, I used to know her name off the top of my head. I used to be able to say it. Now I can't remember her name. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Right. The meeting at Trump Tower with that Russian lawyer. Yeah.
Also, when Tucker got kicked off of Fox News, it was Don Jr.'s and Omid Malik's venture firm that gave him the $15 million to start his podcast. All the little bots now that are freaking out, like one of them, that Alex, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Bushewitz or whatever, that's been freaking out on Twitter all the time, right? He used to manage MTG's Marjorie Taylor Greene's social media accounts. Like, all of these people have completely turned against Trump, and they're all saying the exact same thing, and every one of them is tied to Don Jr. Right? So, again, I've had this issue with Don Jr. for a while now, is that every time someone who was pro-Trump comes out and all of a sudden is anti-Trump, I can literally trace it right back to Don Jr. And as I said, Trump himself has not had Don Jr. at the White House much. He didn't go to his wedding. He's not talking about him ever. Like, there's definitely something going on between them, that, because he's never been shy about going out with Ivanka. He's never been shy of using Kushner. He hasn't been. He went to his other daughter's wedding. He went to all these different things, and he talks about them. What's a Kai Trump? He talks about them. He doesn't say a word about Don Jr.
And so the other, now on the other side of it, he doesn't say much about Eric either. But we also know that Eric is the one that has been brokering the new relation, the détente between him and DeSantis, Florida, right? And it's Eric Trump that brought him Bitcoin, and I think in many ways might have actually brought him frickin' Besson. I'm not sure about that. I'm just speculating now because it all seems to, So there's clear splits within the entire family, but there may be something else going on behind the scenes that we can't see. I'm not saying that you're wrong about that. It's actually really freaking interesting that you just pointed it out. I'm just like, well, he's not saying this about Eric either, so there's some other game that he's playing here and using Don Jr. that way or not, or yada, yada, yada. Remember, with Trump, everything, you say it all the time. People say it all the time, that's a sporty chest, and that's what's the point. Like, dude, he's a pretty deep strategic thinker. I mean, he really is. And you better stop underestimating him and just trying to shout people down with 4D chess if you actually want to get anywhere. They send those guys out on Twitter and in the podcast space all the time in order to try and simplify everything and reduce everything to Trump's a retard. That's a bad fucking framework.
I've never been able to just buy that he's a retard. I've been able to buy that he's, I don't want to say naive, because he's not naive. I believe that there are times where Trump doesn't know how the world works, like certain aspects that he's never had any part of. I've also always said the guy was like literally a legit con man, like in the business world. He I'm not saying he didn't have to be. I'm just saying he knows how to play the game. So I think when people go, oh my God, Trump, I can't believe he's being this stupid. Now, it's saying something stupid. That's just Trump's trademark. He says dumb shit all the time. But the fact that he would do something stupid for an extended period of time doesn't compute. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a point where he would come out and be like, "This is gonna fuck me up. Like, I can't do this." You know,
whenever you see something that's too stupid to be stupid, it's usually strategic.
right?
And then you can say it about, you can say it about the Iranians, you can say it about the British, you can say it about this one, you can say it about Trump. If you can say it about all these other freaking people, then and you're willing to, to watch them argue against their own best interest, Zelensky, Iran, all these people are, making these ridiculous constructs and taking these actions on the international stage that are too stupid to be stupid. And yet we are willing to say, okay, well, they're engaging in this kind of statecraft. It's just complicated. I'm like, well, yeah, you think that Donald Trump isn't capable of doing the same thing? The guy only got elected to be president twice against the opposition, against all those people being in opposition to him. Maybe he's got other allies that you can't see. Maybe he's got other resources and other plans and plots that you can't see. Like any guy who still has Stephen Miller in his freaking White House, he's got more. He's got more going on up here than your average 80-year-old. Fuck off. You know what I mean? So,
but you know what's interesting too is when the next day when I did talk to you after I did crash out, I was trying to make I always try to make the connection, like, where is Europe sticking their nose in this whole thing? And then I got it right away, because the French foreign minister said part of the MOU says when the deal is finally put in place, it'll be sanctified by a UN Security Council resolution, right? And the French foreign minister came out and said, we're not going to be able to sponsor or support a UN Security Council resolution unless it also includes Iran getting rid of their ballistic missile program and their funding of terrorist proxies. What that does is it ties the deal to Israel, and it makes it something Iran can't do, right? Right. So because those two things only really benefit Israel. So and I don't think they care at all. They've never met a Hezbollah person they haven't liked. They've never cared about a ballistic missile program. They've never cared. All of a sudden, it's their thing. No, they're trying to link this back to Israel.
They're trying to poison pill the entire thing to ensure that it doesn't get actually signed. That's what they're saying. That's the TLDR on this is that those two recommendations or those two red lines for them are just poison pills to ensure that the deal never goes through. Meaning,
I'm also seeing
Iran gets to keep doing what they're doing.
I'm also seeing that, and I don't know how this relates particularly, but I'm also seeing it seems like Ukraine is actually kicking ass at this point. Like, they're hitting Russia on a daily basis. And did you see the one video of Russia tried to respond with like an anti-drone missile and wound up hitting their own oil depot and blew it up? Like, yeah, like remember the big oil depot that supposedly Ukraine hit with a drone recently? They came out later to the videotape of it. It wasn't a drone. It was a Russian missile that was trying to intercept the dome and malfunctioned and went and hit the oil depot itself. Wow. Russia is not doing well in this whole entire thing. But at the same time, I don't think Trump is okay with Ukraine winning on the basis that it's Europe winning. Yeah. So I think he's trying to get through Iran because now at this point, Russia's weak enough that they can sit down and make some kind of deal. And I don't know if it'll happen or not. I to tell you the truth, I don't care. Like, I really don't. Like, if they want to fight it out for the next 20 years, I don't care. Like, it's not my thing anyway. But I think that right now what you're seeing is that over and over and over again, Trump is moving to get the hell out of Europe and get the hell out of the Middle East so that whatever different factions are going to keep fighting in the Middle East, they're going to do it on their own merits. And it's not going to be about, like, if Israel shoots a missile, the first thing they do is ask Donald Trump what he thinks about it. Right? Right. I think he wants the phone call going to Bibi. He's tired of getting the phone call, what are you going to do about this? And then he has to spend an hour in a briefing finding out, were their missiles launched? Did they hit here? Did they do this?
I got work to do in the Western Hemisphere, and that's what I'm shoring up. And I want to move the center of the world away from the old world and move it to the new world. That's what Trump is. That's ultimately what Trump's strategic goal is. And every one of these little conflicts are just distracting him from getting to that goal. Thankfully, Rubio was taken care of at the State Department level and at the funding level, because obviously we just had yet another South American country go quote unquote hard right. Like, you can't. None of these leftists can seem to win when there's no USAID money. Like that's the meme that's going around, but it's true. It's true. It's also an oversimplification, but it's also very true.
Right.
So there's other aspects to it than that as well, but that's the basic TLDR on it, and I think that's fair. You know what I mean? So yeah, no,
I
I think
personally think right now Trump is setting up Vance to, and don't get me wrong, if Vance performs amazingly and becomes the darling of the United States, that only helps Trump,
of course
right?
it does.
If he falls on his face, like Trump even said it jokingly, but like I took it seriously. He said, if this succeeds, I'm going to take all the credit. If it fails, I'm going to blame JD. You know, like he said that when asked about it, and like everyone said, "Oh, he was kidding." Like, no, he was being serious. He found it
Of course he
funny,
was being.
right?
Of course he was being serious.
Right.
Yeah.
Trump has nothing to do with the process right now. He's just letting JD do his thing. Which,
Right.
as I said, I think in the end of the day, that's why he's keeping Rubio out of it, because Rubio, he already planned a trip to the Middle East. He's visiting all the he's visiting UAE and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and a couple others in next week. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's going to go to them because I think the Arabs feel very betrayed right now. You know, because when the missiles started flying, they were hitting them, and Trump didn't seem to care so much. Like even when Israel hit back with that against the ballistic missiles, their answer to Israel hitting back was to fire at all the Arab countries again. They hit Kuwait's national airport, killed someone. You know, like
Yeah.
I think that right now Trump is letting Vance do his thing with the Iranians. I think it's destined to fail. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that it's going to succeed and come out to a final treaty. I think that again, what he's trying to do is get them connected to the SWIFT system so they can be engaged on a different level. Because I think U.S. intelligence, British intelligence, whatever intelligence he's listening to, said most of their money is in a shadow economy right now, and we don't know what's going on. So if we let up the pressure at any point, we're going to have a serious problem. We need to get them back on the SWIFT system. You know,
And that's a really interesting point. I like it. Note all of note all the people who have outed themselves as not being trustworthy. The Pakistanis, this one, that one, everybody else who's involved in all this peace process, they're all leaking left and right and trying to shape narratives and make Trump look bad and blah blah blah. And Trump's like, I don't give a shit. We're loading up the oil out of the Gulf of America. We're moving forward. We're drilling we're opening up drilling. We're building new pipelines. We're doing what we need to do. Fuck a whole lot of you, and we don't care. And that's it. And from the beginning of this conflict, it was really obvious. Maria Bartiromo, I didn't have a chance to watch it. I think I bookmarked it, but she had the CEO of Chubb on yesterday to explain the insurance, the insurance system that they're putting in place. Like they're talking now, Trump is openly allowing the entire process to be told to Wall Street how this is all going to change, and to the investors how this is all going to change. This is all happening, and every day that Iran like hems and haws and plays their fucking stupid little, British mid-game bullshit of tying everybody up over a fucking pawn, Trump's like, I'm just moving forward, dude. I pushed all in. What are you doing?
right.
Like, we're not playing chess, we're playing poker. Fuck off. Like, and it's been really obvious to me for months that that's the way this has been going on. And it was so funny watching everybody just indulge their anxiety because they were worried that this could spiral out of control. And I'm like, it's in nobody's best interest for this to spiral out of control. If this was going to spiral out of control, this would have happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years. It would have happened. Again, what I said during the 12-day war, when I finally, like one day, I'm sitting there on a podcast with Alex Craner and Crypto Rich, and it just hit me like a fucking bolt of lightning. I'm like, oh, Iran's nuclear program is the forever war. If that comes off the table, there is no war. Because Iran can't stand up to us if they decide to get a nuclear weapon. Let's say the country is going to be a parking lot for all intents and purposes. Like, there is no discussion here practically in any way, manner, shape, or form where they're going to be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, and anybody on the planet other than the British and the French are going to be happy about it. Good news for you. No one in the Middle East is going to be happy about it. The Chinese aren't going to be happy. The Russians aren't going to be happy. We're not going to be happy. No one's going to be happy. Therefore, the entire freaking world, other than the British and the French, are going to say, blast those motherfuckers.
Yep.
Now, so once you understand that that's the scenario, Iran was never going to acquire a nuclear weapon. Therefore, it was the threat that created the conflict that forced us all to worry about it so damn much. Once you let that go, they're not important. Iran wants to be the freaking protagonist in a story that they're not even a part of. They're at best, bucking for a supporting actor in an Oscar. That's it. At best. There ain't no best picture here. There ain't no leading actor here. They're not important. Arakshi is a fucking idiot to think that he's still important. And part of the criticism I get regularly, and sometimes I get it internally, which is I focus on the British too much, blah, blah, blah. I do so because the British work so hard to remove themselves from the situation, whereas the British really are the supporting actor. They keep wanting to be just the executive producer, if we're going to extend the movie metaphor, right? They're just the executive producer running the show that we're watching, when really they're one of the main, they should be one of the people we should be focusing on, and the camera should be focused on them. I do that on purpose, folks, because they work so hard to minimize their effect and to minimize their role in all of this. But I understand that at best, they're still like Iran, just a bit player when real power is put on the board. And that's what Donald Trump has proven to us over the last 4 months. And everybody just needs to get religion on that and realize that it's all, it goes back to everything I've been saying for, again, sometimes the aphorisms are the reductionist aphorisms matter. They play an intelligence game. Spooks, when they go up against the military directly, the spooks lose. Why? Because the spooks don't have any weapons. All they have are perception. Once you blow the perception out of the water with guns, and that's why I kept saying, look, they're flying A-10 Warthogs over the Persian Gulf. There is no Iranian presence in the Persian Gulf. That matters. They didn't close the straits, as Anas al-Haji kept saying. Trump closed the straits because it's his strategic advantage to do so. And everybody else is playing like they're more important than they actually are, when the reality is that real military power and economic power matter, and everything else is bullshit. And what they're all trying to do is protect their shadow power.
Yep.
And you can bring the shadow power you can drag it into the limelight, but you got to do it the right way to break through the conditioning and the gaslighting. Now we're trying to deprogram people from the Yuri Bezmenov, framework of propaganda, which was I can propagandize you to the point where I can show you the truth and you wouldn't believe it. Right. And that's where we're standing today with all these people who are freaking crashing out saying Iran won the war. And some of them actually believe it, but it's just delusion and schizophrenia. It's not agenda. With some people, it's obviously agenda. With Tucker Carlson, it's obviously agenda. But with the people there are other people who literally have been gaslit into believing something that is fundamentally untrue, and we are now trying to break through what is now a schizophrenic feud.
But I also want to close with this because I got to run in a minute.
Sure.
But yeah, I also want to finish my case against JD Vance. Okay.
Sure.
So he wasn't electable in the first place. The reason he wasn't electable is that Republicans will not get elected without evangelical Christians. He was already behind the 8 ball that he has an Indian wife who is not converted to even Catholicism and is raising the kids Hindu. And JD just throws in a bit of Catholicism here. He openly says that. So he's already behind the 8 ball, right?
Right.
After that, the reason that Trump was able to get the evangelical Christians for 2024 in such huge numbers was the abortion thing, was Charlie Kirk, and was Israel, right? Vance has none of them. Okay, Charlie Kirk is gone. There is no way that evangelicals are voting for someone who's friends with Tucker and all of them, because all they do is trash evangelicals, right? So they're not showing up for Vance because he's friends with, unless Vance comes out and completely disavows all of those people, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Tucker, all of them, which he can't do because he thinks that's his base in the first place.
Right.
The evangelicals do not show up for Vance under any circumstance. And at this point, now that he's seen as screwing over Israel, now he has nothing. Now he has no reason for them to show up. Whereas Rubio and DeSantis both have them in their back pocket. So again, I think that JD being unelectable was always the case. And now this is one of those times where it's like, listen, you want to take the lead on this because you think you're going to be able to pull off a miracle, knock yourself out. You know what I'm saying? But he knows that this is a lose-lose because, again, even if JD is completely successful, Trump's going to take all the credit. And even if it's just the opposite and he's not successful, Trump's just going to blame him.
Right.
So,
yep.
You know.
No, that's fair. And then the big one after that is just get rid of Susie Wiles and ensuring that DeSantis has been purged of any potential Bush influence, which I think is the big one. And that's what's going to dog him, right? And so, but let's
I don't think either of those, just real quick, I don't think either of those things actually matter because I think that you have we don't know where the country will be in 2 years. Right? DeSantis wins on policy, Rubio wins on presence.
Right.
So I think if we're at a point where we're voting on presence, where we want someone with a presidential voice and then we go Rubio. If we're like, oh my God, the country's going into the toilet, we want someone on policy, we go DeSantis. I don't think there's any room for JD in that whole mix.
And moreover, and DeSantis is young enough, honestly, that getting exposure at the national level as either attorney general or
anything,
some other cabinet position. Yeah, and I think that's. We're going to know a lot more about where we are in 2028 after the midterms when DeSantis is no longer governor of Florida.
100%. So, which I think you're right that Trump's going to make him AG. We could be wrong, but that's what I think.
It sets up everything for the potential for necessarily military tribunals or whatever else needs to be done, depending on how things go between now and then. There's a number of angles and directions that can spin off into, but we're not there yet. Let's get through the national birthday and all that stuff, and then we'll see where we are. Mm-hmm. So I'm good.
Thanks, guys. Everybody, you can find Tom at tomluongo.me. You can find me at Halsey English on YouTube and also on Twitter at RealHalseyE. Please give me a follow, hit my Patreon up, or hit up my Subscribestar. We're always putting out new content, and as I said, this has always been my favorite conversations to have. We'll see all you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.